So I've been experimenting a lot lately using gouache, which is a water-soluble paint. It's kind of like watercolor, except it's opaque, and it dries to a totally matte finish, as you see here. But the problem with this medium is that it can, if you put water on it, it will reactivate the paint, and that's not a good thing. So you need to frame anything that you do generally with gouache under glass, which is probably not, in my opinion, the best thing to do. So I was wanting to experiment with putting on some kind of a finish on gouache paintings, so that would allow you to frame them like a regular acrylic or an oil. So that's what I'm experimenting with, and I'm going to try one today, and I thought you may be interested in seeing it. I'm going to split this. This is a painting of just a random guy from a group that I'm with online that paints different people's portraits. So I'm just going to, let's do this side. I'm going to split them in half, because I'm going to try a couple of different techniques. This is painter's tape, so hopefully it doesn't wreck the finish, ruin it. It seems to be coming off okay there. But I wanted to see what the difference would be like, because one side, this side here, I'm going to use cold wax medium. I read someplace that you could put cold wax medium over top, let it dry, and then buff it up a little bit if you want. You don't have to buff it very much. It's sort of more of a satin finish, a dull glow. So it is going to make this shinier than it is now, but it would allow you to show it without glass. This particular painting is on paper, so it would have to be adhered to gator board, or a birch panel or something first before it was put in a frame, just to keep it rigid. The other option, and I'm looking into that, I've got some boards coming, is painting directly on a pre-prep board. I'm going to be trying that later on in the next couple of weeks, as soon as I get those boards. The other thing is you could put watercolor paper, press it onto a board, and I've done that too. I've got a few boards floating around here that I've applied watercolor paper to birch panels, so I'll try that too if I can get one of these things to work. So this side, I'm going to do a cold wax medium, and then the other side, once I get it, because it's hard to get, is a golden acrylic spray. I'm not really great. I don't like sprays very much, because they're just so toxic, and I hate having them in the air, and they say do it in a well-ventilated area. Well, outside, okay, but there's always a breeze or something going on, so it's dang near impossible to get a time when there's no wind and you can just sort of spray, and the spray's not flying all over the place. So I'm going to give it a go though, because supposedly you can do that. There's another product I would have liked to have been able to get, and that is Dale Rowney makes varnish for watercolor paintings. And I would have liked to have tried that because you put that on with a brush, but I can't find it anywhere in Canada. I can't even find it in the States. They sell it everywhere in Europe and the UK. I'll have to pick some up when I'm out in Ireland this summer, but honestly, you'd think you'd be able to find it somewhere, because I'd love to try that. If anybody has any of that, let me know, and let me know where you got it. So I have no idea what I'm doing here. I don't know the best way of applying this. I just said put it on. Normally when I'm doing oil and cold wax paintings, I would use a pot scrubber to put it on, but it's kind of, I don't know if that would be too much friction, So I'm going to try it with a soft cloth first, and we'll see. It just blows my mind you can put anything on gouache and it's just not going to dissolve and float away. So maybe this will, maybe it won't, but let's give it a try and see anyway. So far so good. I guess the one advantage of using wax as opposed to a spray varnish, obviously, you're not going to have the toxic gunk in the air, and you're also not, look at that, you're not going to you'll be able to take it with you. Like if I wanted to take this with me to Ireland, it's not a liquid, it's pretty inert. Well, okay, there's the cloth. There's no transfer of color. This is there's a pretty good layer. I put a really good layer of wax on that. I don't know if you can see that. Is there wax up there? Yeah. Just make sure I get lots of wax everywhere. So from what I read, at this point now, I should leave this maybe 24 hours just for the wax to harden up a little bit, and then come back and buff it. Just like you would buff a shoe if you were polishing shoes. So I'm pretty happy with that, actually. The fact that it didn't actually destroy the painting. This could have possibilities. This definitely could have possibilities. I don't want to do too much to it at this point because I don't want to push my luck. But yeah, there you go. Waxy side, unwaxy side. I don't really see any difference in color. It's a bit lighter here in the background than there, but the shirt's somewhat the same. I don't know. I didn't really look to see if it was like that at the beginning, but yeah. Come back tomorrow and I will buff that up, and then I'll do a water test on it and see. And yeah, so far so good. So it's 24 hours later since I put the cold wax medium on this gouache painting. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a buff now. Actually, when I look at this in the light, that really didn't add very much sheen to this at all. It's still, it's not completely flat, but it's certainly not glossy. I see that just looking at this part of the painting, there is a bit of, I don't know if I've lost any color there. I'll have to look back at the original because it could be just that side of the face wasn't as dark. Obviously this is in shadow anyway. So anyway, I'm going to give it a bit of a buff and let's see what happens. Again, this is new to me, so life's an adventure. Let's give it a go. This is just a soft cloth. It's just a piece of an old sheet. Okay, so yeah, no color transfer. I'm just going to hold this up to the light to see what kind of a finish is on it. Yeah, you know, there's just sort of like a very light sheen to it. It's pretty consistent. There's a couple places where the sheen is a little bit less. Just trying to even out the sheen. I'm wondering, would you put another coat on or not? I don't know. I don't think so. I think one coat should do it, really. It's really not any different than I guess a sheen that you would have on varnish. There's a little bit of a difference there. It's the dark colors where you see a little bit of a, put a little bit more elbow grease into this. It's not coming off. It's not hurting the painting. So I'm going to give it a little bit more elbow grease. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's only one spot right here. And I think a lot of this has to do is the fact that this paper is not mounted and the paper has a few little waves in it. If it was mounted, I don't think I would have that problem. And like, I'm being uber picky here, you know, like the normal person looking at this would never see that, but I'm just being totally uber critical. You see, now I don't want to overdo it in one spot. It's quite shiny here now. So the more you buff it, obviously, the more of a glow it comes up with. And I want to be a little bit careful not to give it too much of a sheen. It's interesting. It really shows up more of the texture of the paper on that. So there we go. That's got a coating of cold wax on it. Let's do a water test and see if it's protected it. So now that I've buffed up this wax, this coating of cold wax onto this side of the painting, the gouache painting, I'm going to do a water test on it. Now, gouache is can really reconstitute very easily. So if you get little spots of water on your painting, it's going to show a mark. So it's going to be really easy to see if this is going to work or not. So let's give it a go. So over his eye. And the face. And is there any color? No. Look at that water bead off of that side of the painting. It is totally and completely protected. So it's my cloth that I used for putting the wax on before. There you go. Not one little bit of color transfer there. That's pretty great. I'm going to give that, for convenience, portability, protection-wise, the actual final look of it, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. You know, it could probably be a 10 out of a 10, other than the fact that when held up to the light, it's a little, there are a couple of places where I didn't either put enough wax, or there is wax there obviously because the water didn't take it off, but the sheen is not, it's not a absolute consistent sheen like you would get on a varnish. And you know, so if that's what you're looking for, but to protect a gouache painting, to hang it without glass, it's great. It's fabulous. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of the golden archival spray, and I'm going to do this side. And I'm going to spray it and then do a water test. But also after you spray it, you can also then put like an isolation coat on, and another with a brush, and another layer of varnish after that with a brush. You couldn't varnish over this because, you know, as we saw how the wax repels liquid, that's it. Yeah. Anyway, what a great experiment. I love it when things actually work the way they should. Just to give you some indication, here's a palette with gouache on it. I just wanted to show you how easily normally gouache does reconstitute itself. So if I just go back into here, look at that. That was totally dry. So if that didn't have the wax on it, on the painting, that's exactly what would have happened to that painting. And this has been dry. This palette has been dry probably for 3 or 4 days. So there you go. So another thing I tried in this section here, I taped it off, was Gamvar, varnish for oil paintings and acrylics, but used mostly on oil paintings. Because I figured, well, that's not water-based, that's a solvent, so it shouldn't do anything to the actual painting itself. And yeah, it went on with a brush. I used a brush to put it on. There was no streaking or paint lift on that area. The only thing is that when I hold it up to the light, the coverage is sort of, you know, hit and miss, sort of ridgy, shiny, dull. I wasn't quite as happy with the finish on that. Obviously it's, you know, just to use a brush and whoops, obviously this painter tape. I wish I had frog tape. Frog tape is really the only painter's tape you can truly trust. See, this one's taken some off, but it's okay. So you really can't just, without looking at the sheen against the light, you can't really, this is the side that was done with the cold wax, the Gamblin cold wax, and this side I did with the Gamvar. And as I said, I'm not sure the finish is okay, but I don't like the finish on the Gamvar as much as finish on the Gamblin's cold wax. So I still have this section here. As you can see, there's a bit of a line up here. That's residue from this blue tape. So I don't know if I can catch how there's still the matte area of the painting, and then these areas are slightly shiny. I was going to use golden archival spray on this, but the more I thought of it, the more I thought, you know, I don't want to go there using aerosol sprays. I don't want to spray them in my studio, and quite frankly, living in Nova Scotia, there is the days that you can take your artwork outside, and on a day that it's not foggy, rainy, or windy is very few here. So that's not going to work for me. So I'm not even going to go there. So what I did a little bit more research. There's a couple of products that you can get in Europe, but you can't get them here. But what I did find was another wax product. It's Dorland's wax. And it says right on it, waterproofing protection, top coat for watercolors, gouache, oil, and more. So their first advertising of the product is as a top coat, as opposed to this wax, which is a medium to use with oil paints. So, and this Dorland says that it dries to a matte finish. You can buff it up to a bit of a sheen, but it says it does go to a matte, and you don't have to buff it. So I was very interested in that. You can get this in Canada. It's very cheap. I got this at Michael's, and I used a 50% off coupon that was online, and got this jar for $10, $9.99. So I'm going to do a portion of this area using this horrible blue painter's tape that really doesn't do a very good job. Anyway, I'm going to, because I want to sort of protect the areas that I've already done. Okay, so this area here, I'm going to use this Dorland's. Try it, see what happens. So I'm going to, instead of using a soft cloth, I'm going to use my finger and get some of it on my finger. And I'm going to just use a circular motion and put it on. So with the cloth, you have less ability to see how much you're putting on. So you can get quite a load on there. So this way, it's just sort of a film on my finger, and I'm just sort of transferring it to the paper in circular motions just to get it sort of, because I'm using watercolor paper here, just to get it in all those little nooks and crannies of the watercolor. And again, using this type of wax, I don't know, I don't think you can take it on an airplane because it does have mineral spirits in it, and it does say that it is combustible, so I don't think they would allow it. At least it wouldn't be allowed in the seating area of the plane. I don't know how they deal with people bringing aerosol cans and you know, products that could be combustible if they're in suitcases. Do they x-ray every single suitcase that goes through? I don't know. And if it's just a jar, how could they determine whether if it was a jar of face cream or a jar of Dorland's picture wax? But anyway, so I'm just sort of light pressure, circular motions, getting that in there. Okay, so that's pretty much covered the whole area. I'm putting it up against the light, and it is totally matte. It is totally matte. There is no shine on that at all. Except for maybe there, because, and I think the circular motion helps to keep it so that there's just one little area there. It's a bit shiny. And again, that's the dark area, right? So there, yeah, it's pretty much completely matte in that area. So as you can see, I didn't use very much of this, and I'll allow that to dry. I'll do a 24 hours on that, allow it to dry, and then we'll do the water test on it, the water test on the Gamvar. We already did the water test on the other product, the Gamblin cold wax, which is, you know, medium for really oil paints. Like it says here, it's an oil painting medium. And they don't really mention using it as a top coat. So, and it's not completely matte. It had a bit of a sheen even before I buffed it up. So the beauty of gouache, obviously, is the matte, is it being matte. So this certainly is great for that, you know. And this is good for watercolor as well, it says on there. So we'll come back, I'll come back in 24 hours and I'll do a water test. So I've waited over 24 hours, and this is the portion where I use the Dorland wax medium, and it has dried absolutely flat. So, you know, absolutely perfect to put on top of gouache, which dries absolutely flat. Matte, or matte, I should say matte rather than flat. Anyway, so really fabulous. I like it much better than the Gamblin cold wax, which was a little bit of a sheen, and then I buffed it, and it's more of a sheen. And then this section down here is the Gamvar. So I'm going to do a water test on this Dorland's. Fingers crossed it works out, because I really like the Dorland's and I want it to succeed. Okay, so I've got a brush here with some water, and there's no color on the brush now. As you can see, no color there. So I'm going to put some water on where I put the Dorland wax. Look at that beading action. Look at that water. Right on his eyeball. beading, 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 beading. How perfect is that? Oh, it makes me very happy. So there you go. No color transfer. Totally bead. This is the Gamvar. I never did a water test on that. Let's try that. And as I suspected, it works perfectly. So, it might be something you want to try if, depending on what your substrate is. You may prefer that finish. I just like this Dorland. So Dorlands, I'm going to give Dorlands. I gave Gamblin. I was really happy about the Gamblin. I gave it a 9, I think. You can see the edge of that wax there because of the tape. The Dorlands, I would give a 10 out of 10. It did everything I was hoping it would do. It dried to a matte finish. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with that. So I'm pretty happy with this experiment. I'm really happy to learn that I can do gouache paintings, put a top coat of Dorland's wax medium on it, and frame it without glass. So I will continue to experiment with this medium because I like painting with it. It's interesting medium to paint with, and so different from really any other medium. It has its flaws, but it definitely has some advantages as well.